So, you know that we are trapped in the past. We know that the apocalypse is coming.
No wizard powder D.
We need wizard powder D. There's none in the city. And the official dispensary people won't have any for months. We've decided our best bet of survival is to get this bootlegger to rebuild his organization, the one that got blowed up. So we've given him some money, and now we're going to fetch some materials for him. The materials are secret.
So you're funding organized crime now?
It's not very well organized.
Yeah, and it's actually not. It's not illegal. It's just that the people who run the official one have a lot of power and are like kind of, in league with the government, right? So it's not against the law, but the police kind of want to come up with an excuse to shut down the bootleggers, right? So
probably it's probably dangerous to make, and maybe they don't follow the same stringent controls.
I mean, the guy because they talked to the bootlegger guy they saved, and he's like, yeah, it's not against the law, but if the police catch me, they're going to come up with some excuse to charge me for something.
So he told us that he's got some raw materials coming in a shipment, but it's a secret what the raw materials are. So they're in these chests, and we're going to go and fetch them, but we're not supposed to open them. We find the caravan, and we come swooping in, and we see that they're under attack by magical constructs. Yeah.
So last session, what basically happened was they fought it. Rovain was there, the cat. She shot off the limb, and it broke off, and then they were on it's black sand. It's black sand. It all churned around, and I just took the battle board and shook it, and I'm like, this is where you are now. I drew new sand dunes, and we went from there, and then it just started over again. 3 new magical auras appear, and that's actually where we left off last time.
Yeah.
It was a fairly long and complex battle because so another limb came out, and they had to fight that one, and there was some attempt to save various Ood and failures to save various Ood.
Yeah.
One of the more notable things that happened was during the first session, they fought a couple living spells, but every time they killed them before a new one came. But this time they started piling up because they were coming faster than they could kill them, especially as they started getting harder.
Yeah.
And so at one point they had the Frost Clutch spell, which is a living icy thing that entombs you in ice, and one of the acid snot spells was there at the same time.
Yeah, and they're both very grabby things. They grab you.
And every time the auras would appear, the limb would come out, it would hit a guy, next turn it would hit a guy and go under. And then auras would appear, and that would happen again. And every time that happened, new living spell.
Yeah.
And I had these living spells I was rolling randomly for, and there was an 11. They're level 15, and there was an 11, a 15, and an 18. And so I'd roll randomly each time what they got. And the spells are starting to build up. But then
we've started trying to immobilize the limb, so
it can't go back
couldn't go back under.
Hank hit it with something where he used it daily, and if he hits it, it's immobilized. And that was key because they very frequently kept it from going back under, which not only let them hit it, but also prevented living spells from spawning.
So when the limb went underground, it spawned more?
Yeah, every time the limb went underground, 3 new circles would appear. The limb would come out of one, and the living spell would come out of one. So by preventing it from going under, they prevented the living spells.
Now, Rovain turned back into a cat for this session. Leah wasn't there to Claire. So Aurora started freaking out about where Rovain was.
Well, she knew she turned back into a cat, but she's like, there shouldn't be a cat in the middle of this battle.
She's vulnerable. Where's the cat? So Robin drew a little picture of the cat on the map
where Rovain was.
And so whenever the battle board got shaken, she stayed exactly there. Right. So that was reassuring Aurora. But I can't even remember why, but I wound up erasing the cat. And that's when Aurora...
Did you timeless trek?
No, it was just like, it shouldn't still be there. It should be moving around, so I erased it. And that's when Aurora started freaking out about how she can't see the cat anymore. Where's my cat? Where's Parsnip? And I started. Cricket is starting to feel bad about this. She told Aurora that it was okay. Parsnip had just turned invisible, and so Parsnip was safe.
So that's the thing now.
And
You
It's
bluffed?
not 100% true. No, I haven't actually rolled the bluff check or anything like that. It's all role playing. But yeah, it was sort of like, we've got to keep Aurora from freaking out because we're in the middle of combat here. Yeah. So yeah.
So it was every
That's
time
probably
we-
going to be the major fallout of this whole thing. Is we're going to have to resolve
The invisible
the
cat.
invisible. It's like, it's like.
You guys have such strange sessions.
So
There's
it was
these magical constructs trying to tear you limb from limb. Where's the cat? Where's my cat?
when the magic item limb goes underneath, it also shakes the battlefield.
No, that was when they killed the limb. So they killed the first limb, and then later they killed the second limb, and then the battlefield shook, and I rearranged it.
Okay.
So every time the limb comes and goes, and once they kill it, then the whole thing riles around. There's a shriek, and then they have to fight a new limb.
How many limbs did they have to fight?
Well, they had to fight 4. In the
Were
process
there
of that,
legs instead of arms?
well, they were all kind of like indistinct
Just tentacle-
limbs. One was like
Okay.
they were pointy. One had like 3 little parts on it. One had one was like
assume they
thick and
have-
had magic wands as hair.
Yeah.
They were all
I assume they had different abilities. I wasn't paying too much attention to what they were doing.
they were actually all the same.
Oh, okay.
They mostly just used melee attacks.
Yeah.
They had a really lame ranged attack, but they never had to use it.
Yeah.
So, during the fight, they saved a couple ood. There was the one guy who was
I
like,
wanted to tell about the
yeah,
ice one, yeah.
I'll tell you I'll tell the other one first though. The
Yeah.
one where there was the melee fighter, and he was down to like a few hit points. And so Croesus handed him a potion and said, "Okay, just get out of there." And he's like, "Okay," and just bolted for the hills. Because I mean, he almost died. I thought he was going to die for
Croesus
sure.
told him to flee.
Yeah.
Oh, I thought he just on his own initiative. Croesus handed them a potion. He's like, "Thank you."
Well, he only lived because Aurora had weakened it. That's the other thing.
Yeah.
Aurora has a thing where if she's next to an enemy, she weakens it. And it was actually interesting because every time I shook the board, everyone fell down because whatever, and I was fine with that. And but Aurora was sustaining 2 things, and it was 2 sustained minors, so she only had 1 action per round. And her most important thing was to get next to the enemies. So very frequently she was crawling around the battle board trying to get near to things. So that was she spent the whole time sustaining things and crawling towards the enemies. And yeah, she managed to be next to the limb almost all the time, which meant that it was weakened, so it does half damage, which is pretty big.
Speaking of sustaining things, Serendipity Van Gogh started more Toppler Tower, Shepherd's Soul's Tire through time. She brought out the Fireball last session, and she was sustaining that thing. And then this session, she added to it this Lightning Ball that she could also sustain. So she was sustaining these 2 things. And then we started talking about what she was doing with her balls.
It was
And how,
impossible
you
not to just
it's just like, okay, what are you going to do with your balls this session, this turn? Like, maybe you should move your balls over here and spread them out a little. There was no way to talk about these things without it being an innuendo. Just literally no way. It's impossible. So I just dove in and run with that. It was fairly funny. Let's see. There was also, I remember at one point after one of the map shakes, Cricket wound up underneath 3 other things or something like that.
Underneath the caravan.
The caravan and like two other ood or something were all crammed under. Cricket was on the bottom of that pile there.
Dog pile.
Yeah, it was funny. There was no game mechanics effect of that, but it's fairly hilarious. The best part for Cricket though. Of this whole session. One of the ood got hit by the what was it? The frosty grasp?
the frost clutch spell.
Frost clutch spell.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah.
And what it does is, if it hits you, it like encases you in a block of ice, so you're immobilized and you're taking ongoing cold damage.
And you're stunned, so you can take no actions.
Yeah. It really sucks, and it save ends. And the Frost Clutch did this to this one ood that had like 3 hit points left.
Well, he had more than that, but then he failed his save.
Yeah.
And
took
so
some
next
damage.
turn he was gonna die.
He was
3
gonna die.
points, 10 million damage. That's it, right?
And so Croesus told Cricket, "Save him." Because Cricket's like, they're ood whatever, they're not parties, so take them or leave
Also,
them,
Brian
whatever.
doesn't like Ood.
Oh, that too, that helps.
Well, I don't even know if it was specifically a Cricket. It was just a general command. Someone save this guy, right?
Yeah.
Like,
I think it was directing.
Oh, was it? Okay.
And so
I guess maybe he knew.
Cricket managed to run right over to this guy, and I got to use my new magic item, the Armor of Sacrifice, which Robin still didn't know about. So Cricket runs up to this ood and grabs a hold of him, and her armor frosts over and freezes up, and he gets freed from the ice, and she's now encased in carbonite.
So it allows you to transfer status.
It transfers a status effect that can save end.
When we were talking about it before, I was surprised that Torment didn't have that.
Yeah.
I didn't know about it. I totally would have.
Because you had like the impossibly high saving throws.
Yeah.
You were just like, I'll take that.
Well, when you were sitting there like you're immobilized and you're stunned, I'm like, nope, I don't get stunned and immobilized. I save on a 2.
On this armor, you don't get to save the first round, so you have to suffer it for 1 round. But as soon as she took it away from that ood, or was Cricket, no!
I had equipment and status effects that let me save on the same round I got it. So it was like something happened, I'd roll it.
Yeah.
That was to the bane of Brian.
So now Aurora knows about the armor. She was
horrified that Cricket froze herself.
Froze.
So the guy actually made it out?
Oh yeah,
he survived.
Yeah. I think we got a map shake while I was frozen, because I've joked about how Cricket shattered on impact or something like that.
Yeah, I think while you were frozen, they killed the 4th limb.
Yeah, and
everything roared around, and then a huge glowing circle appeared in the center of the map. And they had 1 round to ready their actions.
Yeah. As I recall, after the map shake, Cricket was still immobilized, but she landed like right next to one of the glowy, the lesser glowy. There's still a lesser glowy thing.
There wasn't lesser glowy. Oh, maybe it was. Maybe it was on
the one
third,
before.
third
Yeah.
time. Maybe it was.
Yeah, because she landed next to one of these glowy things, and there was also an ood there, and she's immobilized, and so she asked the ood, would you kindly, pull me away from that thing that could explode? And he actually considered whether he would or not, and then he decided, okay. And so he dragged Cricket away from the thing. And it turned out it was an exploding thing, so that was good. An ood did something nice for Cricket.
Nice.
He's still going to die, but, after we killed the 4th limb, it did the same map shake thing and disappeared. And then a absolutely enormous area of sand started glowing. And we're like, okay, it's time for this is its final form. The boss is going to take its final form now. And I don't know if we did anything to gear up in particular for it, because there's still a bunch of living spells running around.
There was a couple. I think most people mostly. That was a big difference throughout this fight versus last session. Is usually on the previously when there was the glowing circles, people would ready actions, but this time they were mostly killing the spells that were left over. It did help though, because that glowing stuff would allow Aurora to crawl near, and I think she mainly got lucky. She would usually pick the right one and crawl to it. So she crawled up to the giant glowing thing, I'm pretty sure.
This was the giant construct that finally burst out of the center.
Yeah, that's when our boss
was
its
arms.
Showed up.
That's what its arms
So
were?
finally it burst out, and it was a giant thing made out of magic items, and it was kind of a whole bunch of limbs, but most of them were little, and it had clearly 4 severed limbs and 5 big limbs left over, and a bunch of like little, all kinds of weird hangy stuff
Did you
everywhere.
come up with this thing yourself?
Yeah.
Cool.
And
sounds like it's going to get lots of loot when it dies.
and it burst out of the sand, and everyone's raid actions went off, and it attacked them, and they locked it down or whatever. And then it immediately teleported away from all like the really tough, the away from Croesus, who's super impossible to hit, and away from Aurora, who weakens it, over to like Cricket and a bunch of ood, including that guy with 3 hit points left.
It didn't come over to Cricket.
Oh, who was over there?
Hank was over there.
Hank.
It was right by Hank.
It was right by Hank, because Hank is the glass cannon.
Yeah.
And sort of.
Yeah, and so it figured, I'll go and, or I assume it was figuring, I'll go and take out their heavy damage dealer while he's off on his own.
And it hit Hank, but it didn't get to do anything really cool that round because it was just it had to teleport away and it appeared, whatever. But it was enormous. Like I used a paper plate with like those 5 legs drawn on it as the miniature. So it's
really like big. 7 squares.
Yeah.
So then it was the parties round, and I was like, oh boy. I've just leveled up to 15 for this fight, so I've got a new daily attack. It's really awesome. What's it called? The Tale of the King of Dreams or something like that. Basically, the flavor text is it's some sort of mystical tale you tell. And my interpretation, it's a bard thing. My interpretation is that it is the most boring story in existence. Because on hit, it's versus will, the target falls asleep, save ends. So this thing is right next to Hank. Awesome.
And it was great because I imagined it sort of like it's this big kind of ball of stuff with 5 legs, and Cricket puts it to sleep, and it just the middle falls down, and it was just like a Zelda boss, right? It falls to the ground, its eye opens, it's laying there vulnerable, saying, "Hit me, hit me, hit me."
Yeah.
And so Hank hits it. Hank, our barbarian. Coup de grace it.
Oh.
Well, it's unconscious.
You mean coup de grace?
Coup de grace is it.
Thank you.
Because it's unconscious. That's the whole point. Now,
I'm surprised a magical construct of items could be put to sleep.
I did an Arcana check to make sure that this would actually work before I fired it
I'm
off.
surprised you allowed it. It's just a magical item.
It's not immune to unconscious.
Like disabling it. It's kind of a magical story. It's like so fundamentally boring and like a deeply mystical level that it puts anything to sleep.
Yeah.
Maybe it perplexes it and it's sitting there contemplating the craziness of it all. So this thing's actually alive? It's not just...
It's a bunch of magic items. I don't know.
It seemed to have some kind of sentience or rage or whatever.
Yeah, either way, it wasn't immune to sleep, so...
Yep. So it went to sleep. And then Hank goes and picks out his best daily, and he puts a power attack on it.
He nails it.
And he just wails away on this thing. And
they used the see the future thing, right?
Yes, to get what roll it will be.
Because he knew they did a see the future, and they knew he was going to roll a 16 on the die, and they knew this thing's AC roughly, and so they knew that they would hit with a power attack. So he
piled everything on.
Get a post stone, they're handy.
I considered that.
With a coup de grace, if you hit, you automatically crit. And he knew he was going to hit, so he power attacked it. And he hit it with this massive thing, and he kept hitting it. And he's built his character to be like a crit. It's really bad when he crits. He has all these extras. He piles on all these extras, and just the hit alone, I think, did 71 damage from that crit. And then he was like, okay, and when you crit, you get an extra attack, and that did like 30 damage. And then he gets another extra attack from his weapon or something.
Yeah.
And so in the end, he did 132 damage, something like that.
Sounds about right.
With that hit. And we are using that crit. We're using a special crit table.
Yeah.
And if you do more than half its hit points, then you get this like debilitating permanent effect. But if you coup de grace, that happens anyway. Since on a coup de grace, if you do half their hit points, it's instant kill just by the basic rules. We made it so with our thing, you get the debilitating attack on quarter hit points with a coup de grace. Now, it was a solo.
So lots of hit points.
He was 15 shy from doing a quarter of his hit points.
So close.
But it was close.
And I think, technically speaking, that counted as 3 attacks rather than 1. Yeah. So it probably
I probably would have allowed it.
Yeah, I suspect John is lenient about that sort of thing. When it's really cool, we'll go with it. And it was really cool. Hank was just like screaming and wailing away on this thing.
He did break off one of its legs.
Yeah.
But now it still has 4 though.
Yeah. And then, unfortunately, one thing that this unconscious thing is, if you hit it, it gets a saving throw to wake up immediately. And so it woke up.
And it's a solo.
Yeah, so it's got big bonuses.
It wakes up on a 5.
It was likely. I was expecting that, but you know.
That's why it was important to drop the hammer on the first one, right?
Use the very, very best you can. I mean, if it had failed and it was still asleep, then we could have brought in, I don't know who would be next in line for damage. Well, I guess Hank would probably have used an action point and done it again. He wouldn't have that daily, but...
That's a really big thing there. Yep.
Okay. Where am I? Alright, the thing's over there. Okay, I actually hit it this time. I was missing everything before, but... Okay. There's like a snot monster here. Whoa! We're being flung around the battlefield again. Okay. Where is it popping up this time? I think it's going to be here. No. There it is. Alright. Crosus has that one locked down. Cricket's frozen. I'll ask about that later. Okay. Here we go. Whoa. Okay, that thing's big. This must be the main body. Okay. Cricket put it to sleep. That's awesome. Thank you, Cricket.
Dear Diary, well, today my cat came back. Well, I mean, Rovaine came back, and that was so nice. And then she attacked the thing, and then she turned into the cat again, Barsnip, and now I can't find her. She was right beside me. I saw her there, and she was near the big snow cone thing, and I ran up to her to take care of her because she's just a little kitten. And what if she gets killed while she's a cat? What will happen to Rovaine? What will happen to Rovaine's soul? We don't know. And Serendipity, Van Goldstrider, Malor, Toppler, Tower, Shepherd of Souls, Strider Through Time has not told me yet what will happen to Rovaine's soul if she gets killed while she's in cat form. And I don't know, and I feel really uncomfortable about it. And now she disappeared, and I don't know where she's gone. And then... Okay, and then Cricket said it was fine. Cricket said, I turned her invisible so she wouldn't get hurt. Don't worry about it. But when she did it, her ear twitched in that way that it does sometimes, and I'm pretty sure she was telling me a falsehood. I wish she wouldn't do that. I know she's just trying to reassure me, but I don't think it's true. I don't think she actually turned her invisible. I don't know. I'll have to talk to her about it. But right now she's enclosed in ice because someone else was enclosed in ice. So then Cricket went and took on the ice. How did she do that? She couldn't do that before. And what? She's frozen and she can't move and she can't talk and I can't help her because I don't know how. And okay, deep breaths. We'll just kill these snot monster things and then we'll get her out of the ice and it's gonna be fine. Oh, I wish Aderon was here.
Most people don't know this, but handling 2 balls at the same time, it's a lot harder than it looks.